All right, we're back. It is MAPD124. That's Advanced iOS Development in the W2017 semester. And it's week 1, part 2 of our broadcast. We just did a little exercise about adaptive layout, and some of you felt frustrated, I think. Some of you were okay, didn't run out screaming. That was good, right? But the exercise is that adaptive layout is tough. It's tough to do. It's not easy to make your app work across all devices, even if you have a nice user interface design. Like you learned last semester with Nav, that you can make beautiful wireframes and do all these nice designs, but deploying is a different story, right? I have a device. I want to make it work on all devices. I mean, I have a layout. I want to make it work across all devices with iOS. How do I do that, right? Adaptive layout. But adaptive layout is not easy to do, and it's error prone, and there's issues. So we're going to come back to this. I'm going to show you some more solutions about adaptive layout over the next couple of weeks and what to do, how to fix it, quick fixes. We're going to talk about some quick fixes, some things that won't exactly fix all your errors, but will make your life a little easier, right? Because I'm not going to just leave you hanging and saying, go ahead, you failed. It's okay, right? We're not going to do that. We're going to actually go through an example of that. But let's talk about some stuff that you might not be so strong on. I kind of brought up this like iOS review, which is the PowerPoint that I put up. Now for this half, I'm going to be using this book. Okay, and the book that I'm using is Beginning iPhone Development with Swift 3, believe it or not. I could have picked another book. There was another book that I was using for Swift 2, and then there's another version for Swift 3. I think it's a little advanced. And this is kind of an easy read, and it kind of tells you the stuff that I'm going to be showing you right now. All this PowerPoint is all about is, hey, I'm going to make a little stupid app, right? Like a little simple app, and I want to do actions and outlets. I know this is easy, and some of you are going to say, what, he's going to waste our time with outlets and actions, right? But some people still don't have it straight, right? So we got to talk about that. How do you do actions and outlets? What do they mean? And all that kind of stuff. So let's kick up a little Xcode project, right? So I'm going to kind of do it with you. So we're going to go to, and again, I have my developer view, so I'm going to go to Xcode. Here it is. We're going to frequently do stuff with Xcode. As an example, with playgrounds when it comes to Swift. We're going to talk about some Swift playgrounds next week and kind of do some examples. But I'm going to kind of create a new Xcode project. Again, I'm using the latest version of Xcode 8.21, right? I'm going to make a single view application. So we're not going to do any kind of tabbed application or anything more complex than this. And I know, again, you're going to look at it and go, are you kidding me? We did like, a navigation last semester. Why are we going back to single view? Because people have issues. That's why. Let's kind of continue. Next. Please follow along. Please don't watch me and don't watch the video. And if you're here with me today, do it with me, right? So, we can talk about a little bit of code. We're not going to talk about constraints. We're not talking about adaptive layout anymore. That's done for today. I think I've exhausted all of you, and I'm even exhausted looking at you, right? So let's just move on, right? All right, so the product name, I'm going to call it the name of my project. So it's MAPD124-Winter 2017. It's a bit kind of a long product name, and see if it works, right? And then dash, it'll be lesson 1, right? That's what it is. And here's a team. Now, last time when I kind of got together with you guys on Nav, right? When we did UI UX, I kind of signed you all up, right, for your certificate with Centennial, right? You should all have a certificate, and you should all be agents with the university program for Centennial. Did anyone not get signed up that day? Like, has anyone missed? Did you get missed? What was that? You didn't do it all. All right, you should be able to go in and actually choose Centennial. If you can't do this, by the way, I have a bunch, right? I also have myself, and because I have my own actual certificate, that I pay for $99 a year, right? But if I choose Centennial right away, that's the team part. And it's interesting that they brought this in iOS 10 and Xcode 8, because in the past you couldn't do this from here. Okay. All right, so com.centennial, we do reverse namespace order, com.centennial and whatever it's going to be. That's the organization identifier, right? I'm using Swift, not Objective-C, and I'm going to make a universal app, right? Okay, let's click next. All right, I'm going to save it here, and I have this project folder that I use on my desktop called Xcode Projects, right? So I'm going to create it there. And notice also it says source control, create Git repository on my Mac, right? This is cool, but if I didn't have this checked, could I use source control later on? And the answer is yes, you can. You can enable source control at any time. You don't have to even check this right now. I'll leave it checked because I'm going to use Git. Create. All right, so I have my manifest. This is what this is, equivalent to Android. I'm trying to kind of give you an equivalent name for it. Notice that I don't have a problem with signing anymore because it says Centennial College, right? Normally in the signing area over here, you might say, I have a problem, fix my problem, right? So I'm not seeing that right now because I have a signing certificate. Okay. My deployment target is 10.2. That's where I'm deploying to. It's the latest version of iOS, right? And notice over here, if you're going to create your project, it says portrait, landscape left, landscape right. What I'm asking for assignment 1 is don't check these, right? So you can't do landscape left and landscape right. I've just taken them off. For now, we'll leave them on. It won't matter, right? And there's other things you can do here in your manifest to control things, like you can ask for permissions. You can do a bunch of stuff in here. Depending on what you want across the top here, you have options to add capabilities, different kinds of build settings, and a bunch of different other options. We're going to go through some of these in this course, right? Now, did you guys do any of this at all? Did you guys look at your manifest and look at capabilities at all? Don't tell me no. Yes? Yes or no? No. I get no, I get yes. We'll have to do this because basically what this does is it gives you access to different SDKs as well as your capabilities, what your app can do, right? Like, does your app do push notifications? Yes or no? Does it connect to iCloud? Yes or no? Like, all this stuff is what up here, what it does, right? Okay, let's go back to general for a second. So this is what general does. I have my view controller.swift. Now, if you look at the PowerPoint, I'm not going to read every single point of this, right? But it's there for you as a reference, right? Again, I'm basing it off of this book, Beginning iPhone Development with Swift 3. This is written in 2016, so it's not something that's old. Okay, it's a new book. Do I recommend that you buy the book? It's a good reference. I'm going to try and get as much in there as I can, so you don't have to buy it. But it's not a bad book to take a look at. Okay, I'm going to say right now it's not required. Okay.
Is it available in Safari?
I don't believe it's Safari Books Online is available. Pack books are all available online, Safari Books. I'm not sure about this one, right? But you can check it out. All right, we're going to add a couple of buttons, and we're going to add a little label. That's what we're going to do for this thing, okay? And I want you guys to help me build this thing without looking at the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint tells you what to do. Okay. Question for you guys. When I make my app, my view controller, do I need view did load and did receive memory warning? Do I need to include this in my application? I should have an immediate answer for this. Do I need to add this in? It's a yes or no question.
No.
No. These are just events. Okay? I want you to think about the application lifecycle here. Okay? So view did load triggers, this thing triggers, right, when the view loads. If I want to do something when the view loads, then I need this. If I don't care about anything that happens when the view loads, I don't need this, right? So the answer is no. Same thing with did receive memory warning. If I don't care about that, which in this little app we don't care, we can get rid of these two things. We can always add them back later. So let's get rid of them. All you need is this to kick off your view controller. There's nothing else. That's number one. So we first clean up our view controller. Okay, notice we also get some default comments up here. Now remember, for your assignment number 1, what I've asked you to do is put your own comments, not just your name and so on and the copyright, but also the date that you last modified the app, and a bunch of other things. Please look at the document. Don't assume that just because your name is up here and the name of the project that you're good. Okay, there's other things I've asked for from a comments perspective. So please look at the document that I put up for assignment number 1. Next, do I want to monkey right now with app-delegate.swift? I want to leave this one alone. Okay, once you start messing with app-delegate.swift, your application does funny things, right? And what happens is you can actually do a print at any one of these times, and inside the output window, it'll give you a result. Here, up here, for example, one thing I want you to change immediately is it's targeting iPhone 7 Plus. Does anyone have an iPhone 7 in the class? It's curious. Oh my God, hate you. No, I'm joking. But yeah, an iPhone 7, not a lot of people have an iPhone 7. Let's test for an iPhone 6, okay? Because most people have an iPhone 6. If you have an iPhone, you're terrible. iPhone device, let's test for an iPhone 6. So we're just gonna go to iPhone 6 here, right? And that's gonna be our target. Before I do anything, right? And I'm gonna go back to my main storyboard for a second, right? Again, a review of Xcode. You know that these things turn off and on the panes. It gives me more room to work. But when I'm doing debugging, I want this pane on. My output window, I definitely want to see that when I'm doing my debugging, okay? But if, as I'm building, I can turn all the windows off so I can have the maximum amount of space here, and this is a very valuable way of doing things. Hey, do I love Xcode as much as I like Visual Studio? Hell no. I think Visual Studio is a way better idea than Xcode, right? And that's not because I'm a PC person or a Mac person, because I think that, you know, it looks like Xcode sometimes is like been slapped together, right? It's got, you know, interface builder, which wasn't part of Xcode before, now it is, and a bunch of other stuff kind of been made together. It's gotten way better, like over the last, I would say, 5 iterations, right? Xcode is way better now than it used to be. I'll tell you, back in the iOS 4 days, okay, going back that far, and even before that, it was brutal, right? There was different parts to it. Like literally, interface builder was a different tool, okay? So let's go through this. So I've got my view controller, and I got my storyboard. Okay, I want you guys to answer the question. Am I targeting the right? Here's iPhone 6. Down here, my view as. You just did this whole exercise. Should I change this to iPhone 6 too? Should I? Do I need to? Is the answer, right? I mean, I could if I want, right? I could choose another layout or whatever. If I start monkeying with this, it's not going to really matter, right? At the end of the day. Right now, my target is what I'm looking for up here. If I plug my phone in, my phone's going to appear up here, right? And let's see if I got a cable to show you without killing my connection. Sometimes this, for whatever reason, nicely kills my connection to the internet. Believe it or not. Okay, here's my cable, my trusty. Let's see if I've got another. You know what? I don't have another USB port. Because I'm using my mic, and I've got my. Okay, I'm gonna just disable my mouse. And we'll do it like that. Otherwise, I won't be able to do it. So here's my cable. I'm putting it into a USB port. You guys can't see that. I got my trusty iPhone 6, right? And I'm plugging it in. And what happens? Well, nothing immediately, but one thing that does happen besides my iTunes coming up, right? And by the way, if you ever want to read anything that's really cool, I read this book lately, The Fourth Transformation. Great information about VR, AR, and MR, which is really cool. Highly recommend. It's a good read and not too much money. It's like $25 Canadian. Anyways, but if I go up to my iPhone now, and if I go all the way to the top, you can see that my iPhone comes up, right? So I can actually target my iPhone if I really want to, right? Once I change my target though, and if I want to deploy, it does this, indexing. You'll see that happen a lot, right? And the indexing takes a little bit of time to make it work, okay? Now if I unplug, bam, it goes to generic iOS device. And if I go back to plug into what I want, which is iPhone 6, it goes back to the simulator, okay? I'm just going to plug in my mouse. So you can see that it does detect my phone. Now, this is something that happens when you run a Hackintosh. Okay, people who are running Hackintoshes in the class, for whatever reason, I'm recording this, so I have to be careful what I say. if you're running some kind of a VM, a Mac VM is what I said, right? If you are, sometimes you'll have a problem connecting to your actual device. And the reason for this is the USB compatibility mode with your VM. So make sure you go to compatibility mode and not USB 3, or else you will not be able to see your device in your VM. Just FYI. Okay, back to this. So what I want to do is I want to have a way of creating. I want to put two buttons. This is what the exercise is. Two buttons next to each other. The one button is going to be called left, and the other button is going to be called right. Right. I want you guys to help me. Okay. And a label at the top, and depending on which button I click, the label is going to change, the value. Nice and easy, right? So let's do this together. So first thing is, how do I find my buttons? This is iOS review. Help me out. I want to find my buttons. I could type in here, right? I could say button, right? If I do that, it'll filter, bring up my button, and then I can drag it in. Great thing about iOS 10, I'm using iOS 10 and Xcode 8, like I said. If I bring it to the top, you can see that my guides come on, which is good. Didn't happen before like this. And if I come to the bottom, you can see that I got a bit of a guide that tells me that I'm in the middle of my screen. Okay. I'm going to let the button go. And right now, as a default, you can see that the button just says button. If I double click on the button, I can change the text. So I can say left, right? My left button. What's a quick way? Do I want to do this again? What's a quick way of making my button again, right? And I want to kind of duplicate it and bring it over here. Is there a quick way? Anybody know? Meh, it's a better way. What was it? Control D. So if I click and if I go command, you mean command, right? Command D will do it. That's one way of doing it. What else? Is there another way? Come on. Is there another way? You guys are like Xcode experts right now, right? Because you've done a whole semester of Xcode. You guys should know everything, right? Come on, guys. I don't want to tell you everything, right? There is another way. What's another way to make this thing happen? And I can duplicate anything on my my user interface really quickly. Click onto it, and if I press Option and drag, right, it automatically creates it, and it actually will create it as many times as I want, right? So if you Option drag, if you click on the actual button and Option drag, right, you can duplicate the button or any other control. Nice and easy. It's way easier than Control D or Command D. All right, double click. We'll make this right. That's a little bit different. It's kind of messed up because I made it right. I got to kind of move it over a little bit because it's right is a little bit bigger than left in terms of text. Okay, so I got two little buttons. Okay, the buttons, by the way, are auto-sized, right? Can I make them whatever size I want? What do I do? The little controls, right? Could I do that just like by one at a time? I could do that if I want to. What if I want to make them exactly the same size? Was there a way of doing it? Like I want to make them a certain size and I want to do it twice. Both? Okay. Can I do that? And if I can I somehow change the size of both? No.
I think you can just control and drag from one to another and it will fix.
Okay, so if that's true, then let's say if I made this big, and if I control drag from one to the other, you're saying, and then what do you want to do? Equal widths, right? So that makes it that. Now there's a problem. Look at that problem that came up all of a sudden. What's this that came up? Okay. How do I update my frames? I don't understand. You guys did this all, and I have no idea. You just did this whole adaptive layout. Tell me what to do. I don't know. What do I click? This, by the way, this is being recorded. That's why I'm doing this for you guys, right? What do I do?
It's the first second there. Like, yeah.
Where? I don't understand. What do you mean? Auto resolve? You mean what? Somewhere over here?
Left icon on the right.
But you said I thought you meant this one. Is that the one that does it? No, that doesn't do it. You mean this one? This one? Okay, good. And then for all views, not so this is selected views. This is all views in control. This is the where it says that, right? And then update constraints. This one? Are you sure? All right, but it didn't do what I wanted to do. It's still red. I don't understand. I didn't do, and then this one is different size than this one. I thought you said if I dragged and dropped, right, that it'd be the same size. Well, what's going on here, guys? You guys are telling me the wrong information. Wait a minute. What do you mean? What view? What are you talking about? Over here? See, everyone has different answers, right?
Just go back to the.
Come on, explain it.
Move mouse to left. No, right. Between them.
Uh-huh.
Between them.
Uh-huh.
Click on it.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
You have to select the
Yes, Jasmine, say that again.
you have
Yep,
to
now we
select
can-
W1 W yes. Then we have to auto resolve.
This?
Yes.
Okay, I got this. And then
Then auto resolve. Auto resolve layout.
over here.
Yes. And then update.
Object frame.
Update themes.
Go to
You
the
can find
editor
it
and
through the
update
editor.
frames. Okay, select the view,
Uh,
editor, option, and update the frames. Like
Yep.
on the top.
Editor? Yeah. Yeah.
Editor.
What? What are you talking? Oh, here. Yeah. Okay. Then and next,
Photo layout.
Update frames.
update frames. And this is one of the things that really bugged everybody too. They're like, "Where's update frames? I don't know where it is." Right? Okay. I did that. Now, is that going to resolve my issue?
You have to choose the resolve auto layout issues and then update.
Say that again.
To the editor.
Uh huh.
Just go to the editor.
Yeah.
And then resolve auto layout is the second last option.
Okay. And then
update frames for the whole view.
all views. Okay. And you're good now.
You can place command, option, shift, and equal.
Say that again.
Command,
Command.
option,
What am I clicking on though? Command, Option, Shift.
command, option, shift, equal.
Okay.
No, select the label.
These two things. Let's say Command, Option, Shift, and equals. I could do that. It's pretty good, right? That solved my issue, it seems. But now we've messed with the constraints, right? And now my layout's going to be whack, right? This is what I was telling you before, right? Who cares for now? Let's just move on, okay? Because I don't want to. I'm tired of adaptive layout. It's going to take too long. All right, now next, I want to drag a label. I'm going to go with what you guys told me before. So I'm going to say label, right? And I'm going to drag my label to the middle of my screen, and you notice it comes up with these, same kind of things. Now, do I want to put it here, here, or here? Where do I want to put it? Well, they're all blue, right? But do I want to put it here, here, or here?
Right below the battery, I think.
Below? Why below the battery? Why? So what about here? Is it different than here? It matters. You want to put it here, right? Hey, you know what? Like, these are like little questions, right? Okay, so now here's what I want to do. When I click my left button, I want to put the label that says left button clicked. Okay? That's what I want to do. And when I click the right button, it's going to say right button clicked. Is it going to mess up my layout?
The width
Side.
should be wider.
The width should be wider. Okay.
Well, now-
Is this enough?
No, it could be like to the side.
To all the sides. You mean, hold on a second. Are you talking about, wait. Are you talking about like to this and to this? Is that what you're talking about? Like all the way? Would you do this? Is that what you're talking about? Right, this is a challenge, right? So, I want to understand, right, from this perspective. Here's my view. Here's my frame rectangle, right? And my width right now is showing about 375 points. Height's about 21, right? For my options. Is this correct? And then I have my, I haven't kind of have any kind of nothing on the left, nothing on. Should I do this or should I just put this another option? Should I do one of these?
Yeah, that one.
Do you recommend this instead?
I think that one.
Oh, well, how's that? Is that better? Okay. This is probably right. How about if I want to center everything? How do I center everything? Is there an option here to make me center align everything to the middle?
You go to the attribute and go to the alignment and then center.
What do you mean? I go here and then go centered? Like
Yeah,
this?
there's alignment, yep.
Is that going to center everything for all my label problems?
No.
Oh. Too bad, eh? Okay. So let's what's the next thing? I want to get to my assistant view. How do I get to my assistant view next? The two circles, these ones, right? Okay. So now my assistant view is there. I don't have a lot of space here, so I want to get rid of this. right? And I don't care about this, right? That part's got to close too. And you can see that now I'm getting really crowded, right? Here we go. All right, I want to create actions for both of my buttons, but I want them to use the same action. How do I do that? First of all, what would you recommend first? I want to create one action, and I want to use, whenever I click any one of the buttons, depending on which one I click, right? It's going to detect which one's clicked, and then it's going to show me, you know, the button that's clicked. I don't want to create two actions because two actions is easy. I just, you know, how do I do an action first of all? What do I do? How do I create an action on my view controller? Okay, so here's my button, my left button, and then hold control, and then drag it into here, and it creates an area where I have an option. I can do an outlet, an action, or an outlet collection, right? So action is the one I want, right? And now the name of my action, this is the name of my method that I'm creating. This is my, so think about this as the event handler, right? Okay, that's what I'm doing. And I want to call this, I don't know, we'll call it button click or button touch. Call it button touched, right? And it's touched up inside. There we go. And now instead of any, should I leave it at any?
No, UI button.
Okay, I should change the UI, but why am I changing it to UI button? What would it do if I left it at any? It does matter. It does matter. It does matter. You want to change the UI button? Oh, absolutely, right? Okay, I know this is crazy, right? But I'm telling you, if you haven't done this by yourself before and you've watched somebody else do it over and over again, you're like, hey, you know, now here's the argument. Argument sender. I could put also argument none. Argument none would make my event handler empty, right? I don't want this. I want this. You can also choose this, but it's too much. All I need is this one. Okay, now if I click connect, or if you press the enter button, the return button, it'll actually create your IB action, right? What does the IB stand for again?
Interface builder.
Very good. And this is called, this with this @ symbol, what is this thing called?
Annotation.
Nope. Close though. It's actually called annotations in other languages. What is it called here in Xcode and in Swift? Anybody? A decorator is what it's called. Decorator, right? So it's called a decorator. By the way, decorators are something that's used all over the place in different languages with this @ sign. You've seen it in Java. If you're a Java person, you've seen decorators before all over the place, right? With that override and so on, right? You can see that more and more. So IB action stands for interface builder action. This is an action method, which means that it is a event handler. It will trigger every time I click this left button. Okay, how do I make it so that the right button also triggers this thing? What do I do?
Doing the same way. When you drag and drop the right button, it goes to the same.
So I drag and drop this to where? To the method, right? So I click this, I control drag to this, right? So that it highlights the whole thing. And now I can use an event, a shared event. So both left and right trigger this. So what is the sender object? What does that give us? Does anyone know what the sender object does?
The UI button option.
Yes, but what does it tell me? What is the sender object? Is that the button? Okay, the actual thing is it's a pointer, going back to C++, it's a pointer to the object that's been clicked, right? Or touched in this case, right? So it can tell you which button it is, if it's the left button or the right button. So sender is the key to understanding which of the buttons was touched, okay? Again, going back to assignment 1, you don't want to use a different IB action for every single button that's being pressed. It doesn't make any sense. It's crazy. It's really bad code, right? So we want to avoid doing that. Okay, cool. So we know that. We need also something called an outlet for my label. And just going with what you said, I'm just going to control drag my label above my function, right, in here. And it's going to create a label. Now I need a label name. So we're just going to call this, I don't know. We'll call this the app label. App label. So that's really what it is. Now, what is this weak strong stuff? How come should I make it strong? Like, how come what's weak and what's strong? And do you know what that is? Anybody?
We just normally leave it to weak.
Yeah, sure, but why? And you're answering all the questions now, so I want to know why. Huh?
It's kind of like a reference to.
To the basic.
I like what you're saying. It is a reference. And the thing is, if it's a weak reference, then automatic garbage collection and the way it releases the memory back into the system when I don't need the button anymore, the label, in this particular case, it does it a lot easier. If I make a strong reference, then I need to do sometimes manual garbage collection, which is a bad thing from a memory perspective. That's why we leave it at weak for the most part. Okay, so let's leave it like that. Press connect, and then we have our app label. The app label. I'm just going to make it a little bigger so because we don't need this anymore right now. We made it so that the app label uses var. Should I be using let with the UI label? Why? What's the difference between var and let? Okay, good. So Swift, you guys know a little bit about Swift. Let's a constant. Var is a variable. Are you sure? I'm sure I can't use a let here.
If it's within the scope of that class, probably. You
Okay.
can just-
What about these like exclamation marks? What the hell is this? What am I doing here?
Optional.
Okay. Why am I using an exclamation mark and not a question mark here? What's the difference?
It's else solution is actually has some value inside.
Because it's already unwrapped.
Right. Good. Okay. So you guys know some stuff. This is good. This is why I was testing you. So then what this does is it does an explicit unwrap right here as opposed to an implicit unwrap. Okay. Implicit unwrap is with a question mark. This is the best way to do it here with the exclamation mark. If you put a question mark in here, it can cause compilation problems. Right? Margot, you're like, what is he talking about? Is that what you're saying? Huh? You don't know this stuff?
No, it's just the first class and more in one class.
Come on. Can't be more. No, it can't be. It's impossible. Yes, it's true. It's probably true. All right. Let's go here. But here's my app label. Here's my app label. Okay. So here's what I want to do. As soon as I touch any button, let's try this first. Okay. Any button that's touched, I want to change my app label so it says touched. Okay. What do? How do I update my app label now? It doesn't matter which button is touched. What do I code up here? Okay. So here's my method. Yeah. What do I do now? App label. Okay. If I start typing app label, there it is. Dot and then text lowercase, right, is equal to whatever code I want, whatever string I want, right? Okay. And my string is going to be something like touched, right? Do I need a semicolon?
No.
Can I use a semicolon?
Yes.
Okay. Do I need a semicolon when if I do?
There are like two.
Keep going. I love it. I love it. If I can give you bonus marks today, I'll give you bonus marks today because you're answering all the questions. But you know what? It's great. It's right. If you have two commands on the same line, then you need a semicolon. Otherwise, in Swift, you don't. Okay. All right. Will this work? Do you think this will work? Do you think if I actually run this thing, on my iPhone 6 emulator, right? Will it work? Let's try it. So build. Build succeeded. That's a good thing, right? Whew. Right. We kind of do one of those, right? And let's see what's going on here. Someone's happy. Okay. And oh man. What? Oh. Just wait. Left. Touched. Now we can't untouch it. So that's a problem, right? So what if I wanted to every time I touch something, it'd be touched, or like toggled on and off, like if I want to toggle, and if I wanted to better if I touch this left or right now, so I want to touch left or right, I want to detect which one has been touched. Okay. Hints on how to do this. One, we know the sender object has information. So if I go sender dot, right? And now let's take a look there's a lot of things that the sender has. Button type, current image, current title. What do I do? Current title, okay. Current title is, I can check for that. It says current title. Let's print out that. If I go current title, current title. Let's print this out. So if I was going to print current title to the like print it out kind of thing, right? Is that okay? Can I do this? Okay. And again, where is this going to go? Well, how come it's giving me an issue? Why is it saying, Tom, you got a problem? I can't print the current title. How do I fix that?
It's optional, the string.
Is that the reason?
Unwrap it.
Oh, are you sure? Dot text? No. right? How do I convert this? It's expecting, print expects what? Print expects a string. And if you look at this, the error is provide a default value to avoid this warning. That's 1, right? Expression implicitly coerced from string to any, right? Fix it, force unwrap the value, like you said, right? To avoid this warning. Explicitly cast any as any. Nah, that's bad. Don't do that. That'd be very bad, right? We want to make this a string, right? What's the other way to do it? I could add a quotation, right? So I could do something like what you're saying. I kind of, let me just pull this over so you can see it better, right? So you're saying I should do something like what? Just add a quotation like that? Will that fix it?
Or can we set?
That didn't fix it.
Assign it to a variable or something, and then print a string, and then backslash, and then use the reference.
How about just doing that? Is that okay? All right, and let's see if this works. So now I'm hoping that I'm going to get you. You have good ideas, but let's try this out and see what happens. Do I get, in my build? First of all, does it build, right? Yeah. So here it is. So now one thing that I want to do is here's my iPhone 6 thing, and I want to turn this on now. I want to turn this output window on down here, right? And now when I click on left, it says left. If I click on right, it says right. Yay! That's a good thing, right? Well, if it's left, then I want to print out the label. Depending on which one is checked, then do I really need to do a conditional statement here? What's the real easy way to do this, right? So what I want to do is I just stop debugging for a second, right? If I want to really do this easy, right? So I know that sender.currentTitle actually gives me the name, and I've converted to string. I could make a little variable, but is there a way to do it in one line, right? Single line of code, or a sock, if you will. Single line of code. Can I do that? Instead of touched, can I make it so that the sender current title goes there? What do I do? Can I just do one of these? Like this whole thing? How about this whole thing? Like this. Can I do this? Is that possible? Now, this is a real cheat, okay? But the reality is, if I did it now, and if I ran it, right, and if everything worked properly, then I should have, one day when my simulator works, yay, left, right, and it works. So what did we learn? And why did I do this silly, stupid example, right? Because people still don't understand what IB outlet does and IB action. IB outlet, remember that it creates a reference, although it's weak, right, to anything that's in the user interface, right? You can do it for buttons too. If I want to have access to the button, so I can change the text of the button or do whatever, I can create it for any object in the user interface. Okay, that's number one. Now in the PowerPoint, there's a different solution, and I want you to see what the solution is right at the bottom. If you guys actually skip down all the way to the bottom, it looks like this. So let title, it actually does a little variable, does it in a few lines, 3 lines of code. It says sender.title. Now this is interesting. It says sender.title for selected. Okay, this is interesting. And then it uses interpolation. This is string interpolation to interpolate the title with the string instead of using the plus, right? This isn't wrong. This is totally doable like this as well, right? So you're actually passing in a string literal, but you're using the slash syntax, slash, and then inside these round brackets, you're actually doing string interpolation. So if you want to do the same thing without the plus sign, right, you could do it like that as well. You could say something like, going back to here, let's just stop this for a second because otherwise it's going to complain. If I wanted to say whatever the current title is, or the title is touched, right, I want to pass in the title, right, and I want to pass it into these brackets, right? This is the other way to do it. With a slash and a quotation, and then kill this other quotation, and I could do something like touched, right? Is this correct? Why am I getting all these funny errors? How come it's giving me this red mark? Is it wrong? No. If it's not red, it's not wrong, right? And that's the other thing I follow as well. If I'm doing this constraint stuff, as soon as I see red, something's wrong. Red, wrong. Blue, good, right? That's what I always look at, right? Blue, good, red, bad, right? And if you have, too bad it's not green. If it was green, good, red, bad, but it's not like that. It's blue. So will this work? Let's see. So very simple example. I know it's dumb, but please bear with me while I do this. This is a method to my madness. Click. Right. I'm good, right? So interpolation, this is the nicer way to do it. Apple recommends this way, right? Not to use the plus. Plus is more of a throwback from C and C influenced languages. This is the more preferred method to do it, right? And by the way, this methodology that you see here is also current with the latest version of ECMAScript. If you're someone who's a JavaScript person, ECMAScript 6 uses something like we use backticks, right? I don't know if you're a JavaScript person, but you can actually do almost the exact same code in JavaScript by using string interpolation. Okay. So the preferred method. So kind of a stupid example. Now let's think about this. I'm using buttons, and I'm doing assignment number 1. That's why I'm doing this whole silly example right now, right? I'm going to put a bunch of buttons on the screen. I want to lay them out properly. I want them to all look the same size, right? Every button's got to be the exact same size, pretty much, right? They're going to lay out. They're going to have a background color. They're going to have all these things that I've asked you to do, right? There's many ways to do this thing. You can use images for your buttons too. Some people did that as one of their solutions. It's totally acceptable, by the way. I don't care how the button works. It just works, right? But I want to use one button, and I want to use this idea of the sender object to detect which button's been clicked. And whatever button's clicked, it's going to show inside the output window, whatever the selection is that I made, right? So keep in mind, this is a better way of doing it than making one action for every button. That is old. It's not. Did anyone do that when they did their assignments for the professor previous to this? Did you guys make one? Yeah, you did that? Bad boy, right? Not supposed to do that way. You got to think about ways. It's okay to be a bad boy, by the way. You know, it's good learning. So it's good to learn that way. It's not efficient. Is there another way to do it even better than this? And the answer is yes, there is. You can make your own custom button class that has its own event handler, if you will, and its own action that works for all buttons. Any button that's been pressed on the user interface. We're going to get to that one step at a time, right? So we're not going to do that today. We covered today. I'm going to stop here today, by the way. I've killed you guys already. You know, I can see it in your eyes, right? What have we covered today? We've covered adaptive layout, right? I gave you assignment 1 and your lab 1. Please, if you haven't submitted lab 1, I want to mark it. So please put it up. And if you're someone who can't submit lab 1 for different reasons, like we talked about, it's okay. Let me know. And as long as your name is on your partner's lab 1, you're good to go, right? If you missed class today, unless there's a medical reason, and then come in and let me know, right? But if you missed it for no reason at all, your lab is 0, right? So that's how it's going to be. So now you guys get all 2%. So please do that. So we did that lab thing with adaptive layout, and we found that adaptive layout is a real piece of crap, right, to work with. It's really hard, and it's something we have to work to get better at. It takes practice, and it's error prone. But there are some steps that we're going to take to fix this, and I'm going to talk about adaptive layout and the whole view, programmatic views, starting next week, right? So I want to kind of get into more advanced stuff with you guys, because this is all basics. You should know all the stuff that I talked about today. There should be nothing that you don't know about the stuff I didn't talk about today, right? Because now we've talked about it. And on top of that, it's been recorded. So if you ever want to remember, you can always go back and say, remember that stuff that we talked about with Tom? There it is, right? How did he do that? Then we talked about some basics. We talked about an outlet, and what an outlet is. It's a reference to any user interface object that's inside your storyboard, okay? And an action, which is an event handler, right? Anything you touch on the interface, right? It creates an event, right? An event is dispatched, right? And for the most part, they're ignored, right? When we don't want to ignore an event, we create an action method. And this action method, it responds to anything that's been touched on the interface, okay? We're going to build on this with, right, gesture recognizers and custom gestures that we're going to create. Like, for example, if I do a really weird swipe or some kind of circle swipe or something, you can make your own gestures with your iPhone. We're going to talk about how to do that, right? Again, we're looking at advanced iOS, so I got to give you some kind of advanced stuff. Any questions for the stuff we talked about today? GitHub. One more thing with GitHub. I didn't put my stuff up on GitHub. What do I do? And I'll finish off with this, right? So remember, I added it to source control, and notice that I have, it says MAPD124 lesson 1 master, right? And what I want to do is it says configure. Now what this does when I click on configure, it does this. It shows me my local, this is my local repo, right? But I have no remote. If you look at remotes, there's no remotes. I could go here and add a remote, right? So here's my add a remote. This is all through Xcode, right? Now I don't have an address. I got to create my address this way, right? So I got to go up on GitHub, right? And remember we talked about this. Here's Centennial College. I'm going to create a new repository, right? And it's got to match what I talked about. Usually I try and name it the right way. I kind of MAPD124 winter 2017, and then it's lesson 1 right now. You know, depending on what I called it, this will be the repository. Be careful not to add things like README files and stuff like that. This will mess you up because that means there's README files up online, but there's no README files locally. And when you try to sync your repository, they're going to be out of sync, right? You can add a README file after. Create. Now I have a link. This is my link for my remote right here. I can take this link, copy it, and I can go back into Xcode, right, and paste it. And now I have my link for my remote. I can add my remote. There it is, right? So now this is a link to the remote Git repository on GitHub, okay? Done. Now that I've configured everything, if I go back to source control, I could push, right? And if I did everything correctly, it tells me where do I want to push to, master, where it says create, and push. And if I did everything right, if I didn't log in properly, I got to put in my username. I haven't done this before, and password on this machine. And then if I know everything, it's going to push it up, push my changes, and then push successful. Let's take a look at that. So if I look, this is all done through Xcode. I didn't do anything command line wise. There it is, right? And you can see that I have my Xcode project, which is a folder, right? As well as my lesson 1, right? So this is what I'm looking for when you do Git. This is one commit, right? Notice this is like my initial commit, okay? Now the reason why it was done 42 minutes ago is this is when I opened up the project. It took me that long to kind of go through everything with you, right? Okay, I want to make a change, and I want to do a commit in GitHub with Xcode. So first of all, I want to go here, and I want to make a comment, right? So I want to add a comment, let's say, up on top of my button-touched method. So I could do something like, you know, button-touch method, or this method is the action method for both buttons, the user interface, right? I don't know, something simple. Save. So I've made a change. I've modified my view controller.swift, right? And I'm going to go to source control, and I want to make a commit. Now, in order for me to make a commit, there has to be a change. So this is the commit message, and I'll say added comments to view controller.swift for the document, right? It says commit 4 files. I made one change, but there's like 4 changes, right? And notice there's a little push to remote. If I click that on and click commit, it'll commit and push. Done. Now if I go back to GitHub and refresh, then you can see that it does both the commit and the changes, and it pushes up to GitHub all at once, right? It's integrated, but you don't have to do it this way. For me, here's the rule. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you do it like this through command line or an external desktop tool, right? As long as it gets to GitHub and you have multiple commits, right, for as you develop in your development process. Okay, one more question for you guys, because you guys are GitHub, like Git perfectionists, right? You guys know everything about Git, right? Why do I need branches in Git? Why would I need a branch? Anyone have an idea? You guys are developers. Huh?
We have a master branch and we want to develop a feature or something like add on the master.
So the answer is, if I want to add a feature, right? Because this won't hear you. If I added a feature or whatever, if I want to add another feature, or if I want to fix a bug, right? Or if I don't want to, I want to make another whole set of changes, something else like, you know, what I want to do. I want to usually do that within a separate branch. Why? I don't mess with my first branch. That's number one. You have your minimum viable product, the MVP, right? You leave it like the way it is. And then you want to add a feature. You make another branch. When I make another branch, after I've done the feature that I want to add, I've tested it thoroughly, right? Then I merge it back into my master branch by using a pull request. Okay, that's the way to do it, right? And that's the right way to do it, especially when you're working with somebody else. So now when you're going to be working with your team, you're gonna get together for your capstone project tomorrow, right? There's got to be a way of collaborating, and Git is one of the best ways to collaborate, right? So let's say, for example, two people are working. Let's say Margot and I, you and I are making an app. We're going to make the next greatest app. It's going to be an MR app. Okay, let's dream a little bit, right? Mixed reality, and it's going to connect to like these phantom glasses that we don't have right yet, right? And everything else, right? And you're going to add this new feature, right? Well, there's two ways you could do it. You could be the owner of the Git repository, right, for your code base, and I could be a collaborator, right? It's okay. Problem with this is that means I have equal rights. I can go in there and change your code base, and then you're going to have conflicts, right? I recommend another way of doing it. I recommend Margot becomes the director, right? She's the director of the GitHub repository and the owner, and I just do a pull request. I do a feature. I clone or fork the Git repository up here. I can fork her Git repository. I make a copy, download it to my desktop. I have all of her commits. I make my feature, and then I do a pull request and make my own branch. If she likes my feature, she can add it or merge it into her Git repository, into the master branch. Okay, the other reason why I do different branches is sometimes I want to do different versions. So I do, for example, instead of master, I might use version 0.1, right? And 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. And I'll have multiple branches. Each one is a different version, right? And that version includes all my features, right? The new features that I added in. So there's a million ways to use Git, and we're going to talk more and more about this. I know it's not really an iOS thing, but hey, I know how to do it, so I'm going to show you guys how to do it as we go. One more thing for Git is you can also add issues, right? Issues are great, not just for tracking bugs, but for actually creating things like milestones, right? Git can be used for project management as well, right? Especially when it comes to sprints, if you use agile project management, right? How does this work? I create a bunch of issues. Each issue is a task, right? Example, add an image to my user interface. That might be a task, right? And then a milestone, version 0.1, right? And then I added a bunch of tasks that I have to fix to my milestone. And when all the tasks are complete, my milestone is done. And it'll show 100% complete. And then I can add things back in, and it'll keep track of everything for you up on GitHub. We'll talk about that as we go. New to GitHub this last year, it was projects. They added projects on GitHub where you can create a project and keep track of a project. Really, really cool stuff. And again, things that we can keep track of over the semester. Okay? So GitHub is a very powerful tool. I think it's something that I'm going to request again. I mean, I'm sure you've been asked to do it last semester. Did you guys get asked for iOS with GitHub? Last semester? It's required for this semester, okay? So assignment 1, assignment 2, every assignment, every exam we do, or anything else like that, everything requires GitHub, so please get comfortable with it. If you haven't had a chance to play around with source control in Xcode, play around, because I'm going to ask for it, okay? Questions before we end for the day? All right, it was fun. Thank you very much for being patient with me and not getting frustrated. I saw your frustration level rise, right? I know people got really frustrated, like, damn, this thing is crazy. It's not working, right? Don't worry. We'll find solutions together for this thing. And remember, I'm going to be your mentor for iOS if you're going to choose to do an iOS app for your capstone, okay? So if you have a question, you're going to come to me. Guys, see you next week. I will give up. By next week, I should have the complete outline ready for you guys so we can look at it together, okay? Thanks so much.
Thank you.